So a couple of weeks back, I put out a video on YouTube that is entitled The 4 Types of Auction Companies That Make Up the Antiques and Collectibles Trade. And people are still reaching out to me thinking that I incorrectly forgot to place eBay in one of those categories. I'm here to tell you, eBay is not a traditional auction house. eBay's role in the antiques and collectibles trade is simple yet complex. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video. So to do this video justice, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. We got to get in my DeLorean time machine and we got to go back to my 12th year of high school, my senior year. September of 1995 is when eBay was officially launched. And back then, it was actually called Auction Web. The name eBay did not come into existence for 2 years later. September of 1997 is when the name was officially changed from Auction Web to eBay. Now, if you were an early adopter on this new, fascinating online platform, you made a lot of easy money. It was almost akin to shooting fish in a barrel, and I'm not over-exaggerating. All you had to do was study market trends. You'd go to flea markets, garage sales, yard sales, antique marts, and you'd be able to see what was selling on eBay. If you could buy it for less and flip it on eBay, you made easy money. And this was pretty much the norm for about 10 years. From 1995 to 2005, there was a lot of easy money made on eBay. Even really, if you want to extend that up until 2010, 2011, that's when social media kind of came into existence. And that's where most people were alerted to the amount of money that you could make flipping items on eBay. But there were roughly 10 to 12 good years where if you got in early, you knew what you were doing, you had a mind for business, you could spot trends, you understood how the antiques and collectibles trade works and operates, you could make a lot of money on eBay. Now, this is what a lot of people do not understand. eBay started out catering specifically to collectors. At one point, there were over 30,000 different categories on eBay devoted to collectibles alone. This is why when I try to explain to people, the antiques and collectibles trade is massive. There are massive amounts of things out there that you can collect, and each of those markets have a different type of collectors that make up those markets, and some markets obviously are larger and or smaller than others. For instance, there are people that collect souvenir spoons or even souvenir shot glasses. Those markets are inherently smaller than somebody who collects comic books or Pokemon cards or rare coins. But make no mistake, if you're an expert in those markets and you have the right clientele, you have the ability to get that merchandise that people covet in those markets, you can still make money. Knowledge is the key to how these markets work. Also, being able to acquire inventory that you can easily sell or flip is also the key to making money in the antiques and collectibles trade. We've talked about this in other videos. We're going to be talking about this in future videos as well as we continue our journey through educating our viewers on collectible finance. Now, there was a false rumor or a false story that was started by eBay's public relations manager back when eBay first started that said the reason that eBay was originally created was so the founder's fiance could trade vintage Pez dispensers. That was a fabricated story. It was designed to get toy collectors on board with this new online marketplace. Now, here's something that a lot of people get wrong about eBay. The most popular collectible sold on eBay when it first premiered all the way up to the year 2000 to 2001, believe it or not, hands down, it was Beanie Babies. eBay is solely responsible for contributing to the Beanie Baby boom, the speculative euphoria that shot these stupid, deformed, stuffed critters into the stratosphere where people would seriously attempt to argue with people like me back in the day, thinking that these things were going to be worth tens of thousands of dollars sometime in the future. Obviously, the bubble dissipated, but there still are certain Beanie Babies out there, very few, that are worth thousands of dollars today if you find the right buyer, the right collector. Again, Beanie Babies as a collecting category have shrunk. There are a few crazy diehards out there that are still left. They are few and far between, but if you have the right Beanie Baby, if there's somebody that wants to buy that item, they will pay a premium to get it. Now, in the 1990s, all the way through the early 2000s, collectibles as a whole carried eBay. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Most people do not know this. Traditional auctioneers, meaning auctioneers and related enterprises that had brick and mortar stores and storefronts, they actually tried to stall eBay's growth by claiming that since eBay is an auction platform, sellers that list on eBay should be licensed as auctioneers, since eBay was a do-it-yourself auction platform. Now, obviously, that went nowhere, because even to this very day in the year 2024, if you want to list something on eBay, and even if you're not licensed as an auctioneer in the United States, anyone can put something on eBay and either sell it as a typical traditional auction or put it on what is known as a buy it now. The buy it now format came out of this push to attempt to regulate eBay's business model by requiring sellers to be licensed auctioneers. That's why we have buy it now as an option. Now, this is where it also gets interesting. Because of the development of the buy it now feature, eBay started to shift away from the collectibles marketplace, and they started to cater to big name brands, manufacturers, wholesalers, and the like. And roughly right around 2005, all the way up to 2010, the business transformed, and with Amazon being one of their main competitors, they attempted to move more into traditional e-commerce and allow manufacturers to sell on their site to compete head-on with Amazon. Now, it's very interesting because this has played out now in today in reverse, where because Amazon is such a dominant force in e-commerce, eBay has navigated back to catering to some of their high-profile collectors to get them to buy collectibles on the site. Once again, it is just transformed. We went from eBay having over 30,000 different collectible categories to now just having a couple of hundred. If you go through, you can see all the different categories that they define as being in the collectibles category. It is no longer as diverse as it once was. Now, here's where we get into the nitty-gritty. You need to understand that eBay is not a traditional auction house, nor does it directly compete with traditional auction houses or online heavyweights like Heritage Auctions or Hakes. This is because anyone, regardless of their experience, who has an active registered account on eBay can buy and sell. So when you come across a listing on eBay, it is not vetted. A company like Hakes, a company like Heritage, a company like Sotheby's, Christie's, Morthy's, whoever we're talking about, they have a fiduciary responsibility to their sellers. Meaning, if you call up Sotheby's and they take your collection of fine art, that collection is going to be vetted by their experts, and their experts, who are licensed auctioneers, are going to put that up on their website. eBay is not a traditional auctioneer. It is a platform, an independent platform that simply brings together buyers and sellers. And if you have a dispute on eBay, what does eBay normally do? eBay normally sides with the buyers with few exceptions. All is what eBay does is facilitate a marketplace between buyers and sellers. Now, here's how I can help you if you are a buyer or a seller on eBay. eBay is good for niche collectibles, vintage computer games. For instance, if you're like me, I love the Apple II computer series. I grew up with an Apple II computer. So every now and then, I get the itch to go on eBay and look at what some of these early boxed Apple II games are going for, because a company like Hakes or Heritage or even specialty auction houses, they're not at a point where they're catering to this market. Remember, when we look at the market for early electronic games, it's video games that have the edge. You have a lot of games, you have VGA, you have CGC that are grading vintage video games, or there is some grading taking place with vintage computer games, mainly through VGA because they use custom cases. But for the most part, if you're going to want to get an obscure vintage computer game, eBay's going to be your best bet. Same thing is true for a lot of boxed and complete but not sealed, obscure vintage video games. For instance, one of my favorite Japanese-only video game systems ever created is the FM Towns Marty. Very few people even know what an FM Towns Marty is. It actually has one of the best versions of the arcade game Splatterhouse made for it. If you're looking for a complete in-box FM Towns copy of Splatterhouse, you're most likely going to find it on eBay. This is what eBay is good for. eBay is also good for mass-produced, lower-value, modern-era collectibles. So we're talking things that may be limited edition, utilizing mass-produced scarcity, Funko Pops, modern-era Pokemon cards, factory seal booster boxes of Magic the Gathering cards from the modern era, Nike sneakers, certain video games, items of that nature. That's what eBay is really good at. This is where I make a lot of my money when I speculate in modern era collectibles. I flip this stuff on eBay. Lego is another collecting category that has helped eBay and vice versa. That market is pretty much dominated by eBay listings, along with Bricklink. Yes, I'm aware, but eBay pretty much has a powerhouse lock on the Lego market at present time. There's a lot of Lego sets that are being flipped on eBay. A lot of sellers active in that market on eBay. Now, what eBay is not good for, and this is where I get in a debate with a lot of people, if you have a valuable vintage graded comic book or a coin or even a Pokemon card or a piece of currency or a sports card, in most cases, you are better off consigning that through a traditional online auction company like Heritage or Hakes or Morphe's or one of the big boys, with very few exceptions. Now, it gets a little bit complicated if you tell me, well, Sean, I only have one or two high-grade vintage Bronze Age keys that I'm going to be auctioning off. If that's you, it's probably not best to go through Heritage auctions or Hakes or even Comic Link in that regard, just due to sometimes the consignment fees and the process. It may be easier for you to just list them on eBay and take the best offer. That is really how I would guide you as a consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade. But make no mistake, if you have a very valuable graded collection, whether it's Pokemon cards, whether it's sports cards, whether it's comic books, whether it's coins, currency, whatever it is, in most cases, you're going to be better off going through a major online auction house like Heritage or any of their competitors. And this is because the number one problem with eBay, the more business you do on eBay, the higher risk of a fraudulent buyer buying something from you. And then you get into the dispute process with eBay, and it's not always going to work out in your favor, even if you are 100% honest and legit in your listings. Remember, there is a risk to listing something on eBay. It doesn't matter if it's a $10 item or a $10,000 item. This is why even myself, I have a limit on the value of an item that I am comfortable listing on eBay. And I tell my clients this that come to me for consulting advice. I talk about this on eBay Thrifters whenever I can. I try to give people advice that eBay is best for more niche items or lower value modern era collectibles. This is why when I did the video stating the 4 types of auction houses that govern and make up the entire antiques and collectibles trade, eBay was left off that list. If you want me to expand further on this commentary, on this talking point, talking more about eBay and what it's good for and what it should be avoided for at all costs, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.